Hi, how's everybody doing? Feel free to type in the chat. You should see the chat box, the chat icon. If you would like to speak, you can either let me know in the chat or you can unmute your microphone. You're welcome to speak. Please keep in mind that if you use your voice will then be in the YouTube recording. If you want to be totally anonymous, you can write in the little chat box and I will read your question anonymously without saying your name. Okay, someone says here, I never thought breaking no contact would be so bad, and I know it's a lesson. I won't do it again, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think we all underestimate just how powerful that is. Like it seems like, really, how is it so powerful to go no contact? But really, it's the only thing that you have total control and power over is not reaching out, not responding, not looking at pictures on Facebook, not looking at some other social media, and losing control of that power it feels like devastating, because you feel it, like you sense it, even if the person never contacts you back. Like, say you broke no contact and you reached out because you wanted to give them a piece of your mind, or you wanted to tell them how unfair it was, or you wanted them to right the wrong, and maybe they never respond. And then you just feel horrible because they're laughing at you, you reached out, you shouldn't have reached out and all that, but it's a learning experience, right? And I think we've all done it. And that is the big lesson, is that your only power leaving that relationship with that person, your only power over that person is to go no contact, to not even look at the pictures, at the memories, at the texts, the emails, because it's just going to stir all of that really fresh emotion. And it could even be like months later, like months and months later, if that emotion is still there, it will re-trigger all of that. She says, he got worse. There was nothing there. I was looking at him thinking, I never knew you at all. He really is revolting in every way. Yeah, sometimes it appears that they get worse, and sometimes they might. But I think usually it's just that your truth barometer got better, and the better your truth barometer is, the more you can see the truth in that, the worse they look, because you're really seeing them for who they are, versus early on when we all wanted to see some sort of image, whatever image they were putting out, and they were trying to be the perfect, whatever it was that we wanted. And we wanted to believe in that image. We wanted to believe in that illusion. And most of us paid a big price to believe in that illusion. Maybe it was financial loss. Maybe it was just energy and time and emotional devastation. But we all paid for that, and I think once that all falls apart and then you really see them for who they are, it seems like, wow, right? It's a whole different experience. And then that's probably what happened, is that you're really seeing him now. And that's a good thing, because to be able to really see it means that you don't want anything to do with it, because the only thing that keeps pulling us back, or yes, the only thing that keeps pulling us back, the only thing that keeps making us want to break that no contact is the hope for change, the hope that they will at least say they're sorry, at least make it right. Even if you don't want to be with them, we all hope that they would just do that, and they're never going to do it. That's not who they are. So, when you no longer see that illusion, when you see it for what it really is, it looks really, really ugly. And that's a good thing, because knowing that it's so ugly, that the truth is so ugly, is what gives you the motivation and the drive to move on, to move forward. It's really, really hard to move forward if you're still like hoping and praying that things are going to change, that he or she is going to wake up, that he or she is going to make it right, or worse yet, that your love can fix them, or your love could inspire them to change. And that's just never going to happen with one of these manipulative, character disturbed types. So I'm really glad you recognize the power in the no contact. That really is like the corner pinpoint of your power moving forward. Like if that falls apart, like everything can fall apart, you know, and like all the progress you make in the healing, sometimes you can feel like you got so set back because that one pin came out. So never beat yourself up about it. You know, I know it's really hard. Like I've looked back and I've wanted to beat myself up about it and feel down about it, but look at it as a lesson as you learn something really big. And now moving forward, you know where your power is. Someone here wrote, or you think that they will get over that stage. Right. Right. Because you're like, well, in the beginning, they were really nice and they did all this and all that. So there was that stage, right? The stage. And there was this difficult stage where they became very mean and cruel and abusive. And you're like, well, they're just going through a hard time and I'm just going to be supportive. And, you know, I signed up to love them for better or worse and good and bad. And he's going through a hard time or she's going through a hard time. So we'll get through this, you know, and that kind of hope is really dangerous. No pun intended. No pun intended on the stage, or what do you mean? On the stage, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but unfortunately that's who they are. It's the big picture pattern, you know, and it's that the abuse cycle involves the sweetness and the mean, because it can't just be mean. If they were just mean, if they came at you with that from the beginning, you would have been like, no way, no thank you. Every single victim would have been like, no thank you, right? But they come on very differently. They come on very charming. They come on very charismatic. They come on doting and flattering and giving you exactly what it is that you need, whether it's something you need to hear, some financial thing that you need to put in the bank to pay bills, some, you know, whatever it is, you know, you just need someone to tell you that you're lovable because your family never told you that. Or maybe you just went through some big, huge loss in your life and you just feel so lonely. And this person spends time with you and texts you all the time and calls you all the time. And you don't feel alone anymore. They knew exactly what it was. I think that's the hardest part for the victim at the end and the survivor, is to recognize that it was a big picture pattern. It wasn't just this stage and then this was another stage and then maybe we can go back to this. It's a whole big picture. It was set up like that from the beginning. Yeah, soulmates. Someone else wrote here, yeah, they love to tell you that you're soulmates, right? How many times, like how many of us heard that? Like how many times, right? Like pretty much almost every time, especially if that's language that you use. Like if you're looking for a soulmate, they're going to be sure to use that language. Someone else wrote here, because their life is a stage and you think that they're going through a phase. That's great. Yeah, they're like an actor on that stage, you know, and everything that they do is deliberate, it's planned, it's intentional. You know, they're putting on a performance, and wow, some of them, like they could really, really win some awards for their performances. Like, you really think they care? You really believe them, who they are? It's hard not to. Like anybody can get hooked into that because they are very, very skilled actors. Very skilled actors. And yeah, that's the saddest part, is that the victim survivor just thinks that it was a stage and that maybe they'll get better and maybe they'll realize and maybe they'll overcome. And you know, and the worst part is when you put that responsibility on yourself, which is pretty much what every codependent did, which is, well, I can fix him, oh, I can fix her, oh, my love will make her come around, my love will make him want to do better. And you know, that might work with normal humans, you know, like you meet, right? And it's like you lift each other up, right? Like that's the beauty in life, is when you have people in your life who are mutually loving, supportive, uplifting, you know, you have an interaction and you both feel better about yourselves and life and everything after that interaction, and you go away. And that's not at all the case with one of these people, you know, like a normal person you can have an interaction with and maybe they're feeling a little down, and you know, you can say something or do something or give them a hug and they feel better and they're grateful to you, and you know, they get through the hard time. because they were genuinely just going through a hard time, and they genuinely wanted support and love, and your love helped uplift them, but that is not the case with a person who doesn't want to change. And that is what the reality is with these personality disorders, with what Dr. George Simon calls the character disturbed. They don't change. And, the danger in hoping for that change, and looking beyond the evidence. And the evidence is that when a person does this 2-3 times, this is a pattern. When you've talked about it, you've called it out, they continue to do it, that means they don't want to change. When that person continues to rationalize and make excuses and justifications for why they did what they did, that is that person intentionally telling you they will not change. They don't believe they should change. They believe that they should be able to do this, even though this is going against all of the societal standards of what is acceptable behavior, and they'll tell you that that's not for them. And that's what their action is. Their action is to make you doubt yourself. Their action is to justify and make excuses for what they're doing. That in itself means that the person doesn't want to change. And that's a really hard part to accept. That person doesn't want to change, because you keep hoping that they're going to change. You change. We change, right? Humans have the potential to change. It's just that people who are having these personality disorders, people with these character disturbances, they don't change. Someone wrote here, been reading Jackson Mackenzie's book, Psychopath Free, and I feel like I'm such an idiot for not having read my late ex-husband's personality disorders. It's a really great book. And, I think we all felt, stupid or like an idiot or blind, to not see it. But until you realize that it's a thing, it is a thing. And there are very predictable patterns. I think the joke is like, how many times do I get a message from someone saying, oh my God, it's like they all read the same book, and maybe most of these people don't even know that it's a thing and they're doing this thing that so many other people are doing. They just learn to survive in the world that way, and that's how they do, and I think most of us feel like, how didn't I see that? But we didn't know. And until you see the patterns and it's a thing, it's called narcissistic abuse. And by the way, I think it's Wednesday, on the 1st of June, apparently, is Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. I didn't know that. I just saw someone posted this in the narcissist support group and didn't know. So going to brainstorm on something for that, maybe like a video to put out or something, but spread the word. That's a great day. I know a lot of us feel kind of embarrassed or ashamed to talk about it, in public, or, even like on Facebook or something to our network, our social networks. But the more we talk about it, the more each of us continues this dialogue, the more people who need to hear that information are going to find it. Because, when you think back to before you read the book, before you knew it was a thing, before you saw the patterns, like how lost did you feel? How alone did you feel? How crazy did you feel? How confused did you feel until you saw it and you realized, oh my God, this is something that millions of people go through, because millions and millions of people are going through this and have no idea. So the more we talk about it, the more we continue that dialogue. And sure, there's going to be people that don't want to hear it. There's going to be people who don't want to hear it. They might have negative things to say, whatever, that's fine. You don't even have to respond to that. The important thing is that you speak your truth. Someone says here, are we doing something? I don't know. For the narcissistic abuse awareness, I'm not sure. How about if I'll do a Facebook Live. That's going to be on Wednesday. I'm gonna do a Facebook Live. I tried this out for the first time sometime last week. Maybe it was like Thursday or Friday. I hadn't tried it yet. Facebook has this new thing where you can go live and suddenly you're on video live and people can chat with you in real time, and you can have a dialogue with people, and basically anybody who happens to be online can be watching it. So the settings were all messed up. I think my face was super close, whatever, but I'm going to figure out how to do it better next time. Maybe I'll go Facebook Live and just kind of put that out there for anybody who wants to tune in. I'll try to schedule it at a time that's not too late my time, because when it's too late my time, it's already like the middle of the night in Europe and South Africa, where like half of my network is now. So I'm going to put that on my agenda. I'm going to go Facebook Live. I'm going to announce it before I do it. Probably I'll announce it tomorrow just to give people a heads up, because a lot of people don't get the notifications. Like I noticed Facebook is basically notifying like 10% of my tribe when I post something. So unless people have the notifications set to like always deliver either in their notifications or in their news feed, they don't know. So if I go live, most people don't find out until after the fact. So I'll probably announce it ahead of time. I'll think about some kind of theme. If anybody has any questions or anything too, I'm happy to receive those. Someone here wrote, "Hi Meredith, I wondered if I could ask your advice. I was brutally discarded by my narc 2 months ago in a heartless way. I have made big strides in rebuilding my life and have stuck to no contact. Goodness, is it hard, especially as we work in the same company. Wow. However, despite my efforts, I still have low points where I cannot get the narcissist out of my mind. Do you have any tips for clearing them from my mind? It is worse late at night or early morning when I am alone. I continue to work hard but cannot seem to break free, although it is now a couple weeks since their last Hoover attempt." Okay, so good job on the no contact, first of all. And second of all, working at the same company, that's very challenging. So this is a huge lesson in boundaries for you. And this is, yes, very, very hard. Yeah, so this is a big, big lesson in boundaries. Essentially, if you approach this as a learning opportunity, the universe is giving you this learning opportunity to improve your boundaries, because quite possibly your boundaries weren't solid enough. Your boundaries weren't healthy enough. You possibly compromised your boundaries and or didn't set your boundaries clear enough and allowed other people, to step all over you, walk all over you. I did. That's how I got myself into those situations. And so now is your opportunity to create new sense of boundaries in your life. And you're going to have to practice this like Monday through Friday, probably, like how many ever days you're there at work. And my suggestion to you is, when dealing with that person, like if you have to interact about a work thing, then you interact about a work thing, but keep it strictly work. Like you don't know them anything else. You definitely have to do the work thing because it's your job, right? You can get fired if you don't do your job, but nothing personal about you, nothing personal about them. Definitely don't show any emotion. And this is really, really hard. Like really, really hard, because you get in their presence probably and heart starts beating, maybe you're breaking into a sweat, like your mouth maybe trembles, like there's so many things you want to say and do, right? Because you're so hurt. And that's the really hard part. So you want to focus on breathing, taking some deep breaths, breathing before you react or respond, breathing at least 3 times before you respond, and being very cautious not to get caught in self-defense, because that person is likely going to push and provoke you to the point where you try to defend yourself and you go on the defensive. And that is where every manipulative person goes, whether they're a narcissist or not. Every manipulative person has the agenda of winning, but getting you to go on the defense. And if you're on the defense, all of your energy and focus is like defending yourself, and now you're not paying attention to what that person is doing, which is the actual aggression that you need to be aware of. So keep your mind really open and aware of what's going on, and keep it strictly work, nothing else. She writes here, "I have relocated offices, but they still try and get involved in my work for no reason. Yes, provocation is very in your face." Yeah, so you want to be really cautious, because these kinds of people, I'm glad you're not in the same office anymore, but these kinds of people can be doing all sorts of things behind your back. They can be going to the boss and saying bad things about you. They could be spreading rumors about you to everyone else. They could be feeding you ideas and then you respond to that, and then everybody else attacks you. Like they could be creating any sort of triangulation, smear campaign, flying monkey situation at work. And you want to be really cautious of that, because your reputation at work, your career at work is at risk. So you want to be very cautious with that. I recommend getting this book, In Sheep's Clothing, Dr. George Simon. This is wonderful. I mean, it's really, really helpful for like these work situations with manipulative people. He describes the tactics that manipulative people use. He describes the vulnerabilities and weaknesses that the target can have. So, what to be aware of in yourself, that you don't fall into that trap, what to look for in them, like, oh, this smells like a manipulation tactic, so I'm not going to respond this way. Instead, I'm going to respond that way. To be more aware of what's going on, to understand it, to understand how to approach it, I highly recommend getting this book. It's a really short read. It's like 170 pages. I'm almost done. I just got it this weekend to read. I'm going to be interviewing Dr. George Simon on the 8th, and then I'm going to post a video of that interview afterward, because he has such amazing information in this book that I really want to get out to you guys. I want to ask him some specific questions to help him elaborate on his theories that would apply to, I think, a lot of the questions that people have. And I really recommend getting that book so you can understand the tactics in dealing with this person. Don't respond to the Hoover in an emotional way. Don't respond in a way that's self-defensive, right? Be aware of what's happening, and don't make excuses and don't make rationalizations for it, because that will enable it to keep going on. Someone says, can we ask a question for that interview? Send me an email, and I'm going to put together a list of questions. Like, I want to let it kind of flow spontaneously, like a conversation too, but I will have a list of questions that I would like to ask if the time allows. So if you have a specific question, send me an email, and then I'll keep that on hand for the interview. The interview will just be him and me on Skype, and then I'll make a video of it and I'll upload it for you guys to hear. But I really can't wait to interview him and to have him share this information with you guys. He does have some videos out there on YouTube. I think there really aren't that many, maybe like half a dozen or so, but check him out, Dr. George Simon. The book is In Sheep's Clothing. Really, really excellent book for understanding these types. And, it's just, when you're in a work situation like that, I've been there several times, it's really complicated. And so many times I ended up having to leave because I couldn't clear my mind. Like your main question right now, right, is about like your mental state, right? So how do you clear it from your mind? If you're in it every day, or you're getting emails from it every day, it's really, really hard to keep your mind clear from that. So, in the meanwhile, doing the work on that. And how I've found, the best ways I've found to shift my mental state away from that is finding something new to focus on. And that new thing being your passions and your purpose, right? So the more you tap into your sense of life purpose, like why you're here, what is meaningful, what do you want to contribute to others, what service do you want to offer to others, the legacy that you want to leave, and what does that look like? Like, why do you get out of bed every day? Like, why do you want to interact with the world every day? The more you tap into your why, your purpose, the bigger your purpose comes, the more it starts magnetizing you forward instead of getting sucked into the gravitational pull of the past. So focus on purpose, focus on passion, focus on what you love, what's important to you, what matters to you, what your values are, and keep redirecting your mind on what you want to create, right? Because there's two energies in the world. There's the creation energy and the destruction energy, like the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine. And neither one is inherently bad, right? Because there has to be that destructive force in the universe as well. Like, it can't just be infinitely growing and building. Like, there has to be like a check and balance sort of force in this universe. So that destructive force isn't inherently bad. When we've created something that we don't want anymore, when something has gotten, out of hand, it's run amok, it has to be destroyed in order for us to create something new. It's like the tarot card in the Tower card in tarot, which is about that. It's like everything crashes down and burns so that, you rise again from the ashes and create something new. So if you look at, that experience with a new perspective, it's easier to then extract passion and purpose. Like there was some gift in that experience, you know, something he taught you, something you learned through your interactions with him that is now helping to lead you in your direction of passion and purpose in life. And the more you tap into that, and the more you consciously redirect your mind, and at first it's very hard because your mind is automatically going to go to that old stuff. So the more you can consciously override that, and every time it happens, redirect. Every time it happens, redirect. And just keep redirecting your mind to what's significant, what matters, what you value in life, and what you want to do. You know, what you want to add to the world, what contribution you want to give to others. That's going to make it a lot easier. You mentioned in the morning and late at night. And I can totally agree, right? Because that's when the mind is most idle. You know, during the day, there's all kinds of distractions and there's work and things. And late at night, and then like first thing in the morning, that's when your mind is like just open. And it could be that like the first thought in your mind for a while is that, you know? And so set up a new morning routine. I tell people it's really important to set up a morning routine, like the first 30 minutes of your day, maybe an hour, but at least 30 minutes of your day is set up. And you want to write this down at first until it becomes so automated that you just get up and you just do this. And your morning routine is whatever makes sense for you. It's whatever you need to do to get yourself ready for the day. And maybe you really enjoy a cup of coffee in the morning, and it's like this full sensory experience, like the smell of the beans, you know, as you're grinding them and it's filling the room, and then you make the coffee and oh my God, it smells so good, and you drink it and it's just, oh yeah, it's amazing, and all your senses are awakening. Or maybe you like to make like a breakfast smoothie and, you know, you're putting all these superfoods in there and you're getting yourself pumped up with that. I really recommend that you include in your morning routine something that involves movement, even if it's 10 minutes of stretching, 10 minutes of walking, some kind of movement, even dancing, right? And then something to really pump you up, something to inspire you, to get you excited for the day. So maybe there's like a particular person on YouTube that you like to listen to, like an astrologer, for example. I like to start my day with my astrologer talking about what's going on today, what do you want to look out for, what do you want to harness the energy of to accomplish today, that kind of thing. I'm listening to that as I'm making my coffee, as I'm stretching, as I'm getting ready. Don't dive into your inbox for at least 30 minutes to an hour in the morning. Allow yourself to have that time that's just for you, because your inbox is going to lead you to other people's agendas, and you're going to go and you're going to be responding to other people. So you want that first 30 minutes to an hour of your morning to be all about you. Maybe it's putting on your makeup and feeling beautiful, like whatever that morning routine is for you, something to pump you up, something to move you, and something that feels good so that you start looking forward to that in the morning. And then now your day is like pumped, like your day is on this like positive vibration. You listen to some good music, you listen to some inspiring person, something motivational, your body feels good because you're moving it and you're ready to go for the day, versus waking up and going, oh yeah, I remember when that thing happened. God, why won't he just do the right thing? Why, you know what I mean? It's a whole different tone for the day. Oops, let me catch up here. I missed a lot. Yes, the most difficult was them walking into a meeting, which was unrelated to them, and calling me out in front of everyone. Pass. Wow. Yeah, that's really crappy. Someone else says, I admire you to that person. You are amazing having to look at him at work. Indeed, that is like a huge, huge test of boundaries. Passions help. My legacies are my work. Good. Yeah, that's really crappy that he's just going to walk into meetings like that. You know, that's intentionally to get you to act out, to feel embarrassed, to shame you, the smear campaign and all that. Hopefully everybody else isn't responding to that. The best thing you can do is not respond to that. You know, yeah, someone says it's crazy making. It really is. I would not at all respond to that. I would just kind of look at that like, with silence. Look at him very, you know, when my dog doesn't understand what's going on, her head just goes to the side, you know, I would kind of make one of those faces like, that's so odd that you would say that. Or even flat out, like if he doesn't leave the room and he's like standing there waiting for a response, I would just say, that's interesting. And maybe he asks why, and then maybe you point out, that's just so interesting that you would say that because whatever. Or maybe you would ask, and you would say something like, that's interesting. Tell me more. That's interesting. Why would you say that? That's interesting. Why would you think that? And instead of self-defending, turn it back to that person. Others are understanding at work. I turned away and pretended not to hear. Good. Yeah, if they're not relentlessly trying to make a scene, the best solution to that is what you did. Turn away, ignore it. They look like the fool. If he's really standing there trying to make a scene, I would literally say, that's interesting. And if you feel like it, something like, I wonder why you would say that. Because then again, you're turning it back on that person. Someone else added, I changed to a point where I started disliking myself because I was behaving out of character. However, that was also my watershed moment. I decided that I liked my own personality type and could only be me outside of the marriage. Yeah, that's just the thing, is that when you interact with the narcissist, they will get you so off guard. They will get you and provoke you and push you to that point where you become unhinged like them. And then you act out of character. You do things or say things that you regret. And you're like, God, that isn't me. Why would I say that? Oh, I would never do that. Why did I do that? Because you got caught up in the moment, right? And so really important to keep checking in with yourself. That's what that breath is, like the 3 breaths, is like, it gives you that chance to come back to you, right? Because the first instinct is like to attack that, just jump all over it. That's my instinct, is like jump all over that. And then I look like a jerk. And then I look like I'm aggressive because I'm outwardly defending myself. And then I look like I'm guilty because I'm defending myself. So reminding myself always to take those 3 breaths and remember, this is not self-defense. I'm not defending me. This is an offensive attack. And instead to focus on that person. That's so interesting. Why would you say that? I wonder why you would do that. Because it is about them. It's not about you. And that's the dirtiest trick that they pull, is they get you to think it's about you. And then you start acting out to either make it better or override it or respond to that. And then you end up looking like the crazy person or the bad person. She says, my watershed moment was collapsing, exhausted on the sofa in front of them. And that didn't try and care for me. They responded with, I always told you I wouldn't look after you if you got sick. I feel for you, to that other person. Yeah, that is a great time to notice toxic people in your life. Like when you are so exhausted that you collapsed and they didn't care and walked away, or you get sick and like say you're living with this person, or maybe they live close by and like they're your partner or something, and you get sick and they don't care to come by to check on you, to bring you anything. Maybe you want some like bubble water because you have the flu and you feel horrible and you don't even want to get them sick. You're just like, can you just please bring a bottle of that water over? Just leave it on the porch. I'll go get it after you leave. Please. I need it so bad. My body's hurting. And they don't want to do it, and they don't want to help you, and they disappear and they don't care and they don't check in on you. You really know how much of a priority you are in that person's life, how much they don't care about you. And that's the unfortunate thing. I don't know if that's happened to other people too, where you get to that point of holding on in this relationship, like well beyond the point where you should be in that relationship, because you're still doubting. And then the universe is like, here's some food poisoning for you, or here's the flu. And you get really sick. And then you have to count on somebody for help, and you have to ask for help. And maybe you were always helping them and you never asked for help, but now you're so sick, like you're just desperately asking for help. And they're like, you want me to go to the store? You want me to go now? And like, then they don't care about you. And it's like, that's the universe giving you that opportunity. It's like, it's pushing you into that squeeze until you make a different decision, because it's just not working for you. But when they were sick, I drove a 5-hour round trip to help them for an hour. Of course you did. I should have picked up on the red flags at the time. Yeah, we all did that, right? when they got injured or they got sick, like you're there, you know, waiting on them, hand and foot, like anything they need. And then you're like, okay, now I'm sick. It's like the one time I need help and I'm asking for help and they can't help. They don't want to help because they don't care. They just don't care. Someone else said, thanks. Applied the no contact rule. I learned to not expect any positive responses. Yeah. You know, sometimes it just gets to that point where we go through that really rough experience and you know, we get sick or we get injured or something catastrophic happens or we have to rely on them for help and then they don't help. And then it just becomes so clear that they don't care. I know that thing when they are ill. When I was ill, he would just go out with his buddies. Yeah, that's awesome. Someone else said, well done to that person. Yeah. Yeah. You really learn who cares about you when you get sick or you get injured. And it just becomes super clear. You know, I think I mentioned in a video last week, like once you become aware that you're being abused or you're becoming aware at least that something's not right, or maybe like, you know, you flat out understand this is narcissistic abuse and this person is very manipulative. And what happens is like, once you become aware, it's like the situation already starts to change. And it's almost like there's this like force in the universe that's like pressuring you to get out, to make the changes that you need to make to get out, to make the changes you need to make in yourself, to make it okay, you know, to be more assertive. And it's like, you know, how many times did I get an injury or did I get sick or did some kind of crazy situation happen that forced me because I wasn't going to do it. You know, I was becoming aware this was not okay. This is unhealthy. This feels like it's abusive, but I wasn't taking action. But because I had that awareness, the situation was already changing and it was like the universe was like pushing me to make that change. I've heard some other people mention that too. And it's almost like, you know, in the movie Inception, when the girl, I forget her name, Adriana, maybe, when Leonardo DiCaprio's character is teaching her about the dream architecture, and she doesn't realize that they're in a dream and they're sitting in this place, maybe in Paris or something. And all of a sudden she becomes aware that she's dreaming, but because she's so shocked and kind of scared, like the dream is like blowing up, like it's collapsing all around her. Everything is blowing up because she became aware of it. It started changing. And it's something similar. It seems like it happens in some kind of energetic, metaphysical kind of way that the universe will push you then, you know, to act on that awareness. So I'm sorry you're going through this, you know, to that person who's talking about this work situation. I'm really sorry. I know that's really, really hard when you have to stay and face this person, you know, even if you don't have to see them every day in the office, the fact that, you know, they can just drop in or they can send that email or whatever. And, you know, those drop-ins, it's like that hypervigilance of the PTSD gets triggered. I made a video about that a few days ago where like a lot of us, you know, like if we lived with a narcissist, it's like maybe the sound of their keys or the sound of the garage door or the sound of the front door opening that like triggers the anxiety and panic, or even just the anticipation of the next time that sound comes, knowing that they're coming back. And for you at work, that hypervigilance is going to be around, you know, sitting in a meeting and needing to focus on work and being present. And then like suddenly, oh God, is that person just going to show up? And what are they going to throw at me this time? Thankfully, it sounds like the people at your work are not, you know, giving into that. They're not feeling that like flying monkeys would. That's a really good thing. But you just need to be on those boundaries. You need to always keep focusing that back on that person and not self-defense. Looking back, she says, I changed dramatically when I called them out about not paying for anything. Even when I visited them, I would have to pick up food on the way. When we went out, I would be left with the bill. When I asked for a contribution, they got very aggressive. Yeah, that's when you know that the table is just, it's very skewed. It's not in any kind of equal sort of way. You're always picking up the bill. You're always taking care of it. I've been in that situation a few times too. And it's like, they don't even like try to make it better. They just start to look at you like, you know, the cash pile, and that you're just going to pick it up and you're just going to do it. They just take it for granted. That's really unfortunate. But now, right now you can see that person was taking advantage of you, that they were using you for that. And then, like you said, when you asked for a contribution and they got aggressive, best way to notice if a person is toxic is to set a new boundary. You're out at dinner and you're like, hey, do you think you can pay for your half this time? Because I have always been paying, or I've paid, the last 5 times. Could you possibly put in your contribution? And they blow up and get angry. That's not a healthy person for you to be around. It's a very toxic person. And then she says, yes, work is hard. Microsoft link cannot be blocked. And I have a LinkedIn stalker despite blocking them. Okay, I don't know what Microsoft link is. And I'm not super familiar with LinkedIn. I have an account. I don't use it really often. It sounds like what you're saying is that you can't block them on the LinkedIn site. Is that what you mean? And so that's making it complicated. Is he like harassing you? Link is an inner office, inner messenger. Okay. LinkedIn, someone asked, is another social media platform, mostly for business. It's like a lot of business networking. Now there's more things too. I guess people can advertise on there. People can write and post other things. Yes, regular messages. Yeah, that's unfortunate that you can't block them on the messenger. Yeah, someone says LinkedIn is like Facebook for work. It is kind of like that. So that's unfortunate. So that means every single time that it pops up, you're just going to have to not look at that. Like, don't even read it unless it is work related. I guess, does that person have some kind of, do they have some kind of like authority over you? Like if they asked you to do something, would you have to respond to that? Or is it always just going to be some kind of sidelines bullshittery? You are hiring the company. Okay, good. So if you don't have to deal with that sideline stuff, yeah, I would just ignore that entirely. Like, I'm sure you probably see like the name, right, of the person who's contacting you. So the name pops up, don't even look. Because the thing is, like, if you read it, if you read the text, if you read the email, if you read the whatever, you're creating an energetic connection. Like, even if you don't respond back, when you read the words, right? I know it sounds like kind of woo-woo and all, but don't underestimate the power of the words, the power of that contact, because those words are loaded. And especially with covert, manipulative people, they so specifically craft their words to trigger you. Like the trigger is the underhanded subtleness behind the words. It's rarely in the words themselves, though they will use trigger words, but it's usually in the message behind the words. And all you have to do is read that, and you intuitively understand, like unconsciously, you get what they're saying, you get the threat, or you get whatever, it is that they're doing. And then it triggers the emotional response, right? So to avoid that entirely, I just wouldn't even go there. I wouldn't even read it. Just handle it like you do when this person walks into the meeting, they barge into the meeting and they say something to you. Ignore it, dismiss it, don't even deal with it unless they stand there and want to make a fool of themselves, and then just flip it back. That's interesting. I wonder why you would say that. That's interesting. Why would you think that? And just, again, keep turning it back on them. Don't let them trick you into the self-defense, because that's where we all get caught, and that's where we get exhausted and confused. It's really hard to think when you're focusing on self-defense. There's a great TED Talk out there. I recommend. It's really short. I think it's called The Art of Misdirection. And I can't remember the name of the speaker. He's a magician. And he talks about the art of misdirection and how that's what magic is, right? It's like it's redirecting the audience's focus and attention to something else while they do whatever they do to make the trick happen. And so he's really good at like the pickpocket stuff. So he's got some guy from the audience on stage, and the guy's got a wristwatch on and whatever. And he comes up and he's touching him on his body and making jokes, and then he's talking about something, and he gets him to focus on something. And he says, he usually gets people to focus on a memory, something from the past, because if people are thinking about something from the past, there's some part in their brain that becomes focused on the past and then is no longer focused on new information. New information, meaning he's touching your arm and slipping your watch off, or he's reaching his hand in your pocket and pulling out your wallet, and you don't realize because you're thinking about whatever it is he got you to think about, right? And that is exactly what these manipulative people do. They might not be pickpocketing, but they're pick-minding. They're getting in there and they're distracting you with something. So if you're distracted with self-defense, or you're triggered thinking about past stuff, right, which is what inevitably happens, then they can easily, work some kind of magic out here and deceive you, because your thinking brain isn't focusing on the new information, what's happening in the immediate environment. So be very cautious with that. Don't take the bait. Don't go for the misdirection. Don't go for the self-defense. Because if your attention is focused on the self-defense, then you're not paying attention to the offensive things that they're doing, because what they're doing are offensive moves. It's not a defense, it's an offense. They're on the attack, they're fighting. And we don't see that when we're so busy focused on what's wrong with me, what did I do wrong, I need to defend myself, I didn't do anything wrong, this isn't fair, whatever. And then we're trying to defend ourselves, and then we miss what's actually out there. So I think you're handling that really well. I think you're in a very difficult situation. And I want to give you a big hug for that, because that is not easy. That's not easy at all. You are going to come out of this a lot stronger. You probably already recognize how much stronger you are now than like a month ago, 2 months ago, several months ago. You're going to come out of this. Someone else said, yeah, you are amazing to you. You're going to come out of this so much stronger than you ever knew you were. You're going to come out of this understanding your boundaries, your right to have boundaries, a lot better than you did in the past. You're probably going to be able to override some of the guilt and shame that you had about setting your boundaries, because the better you get with these boundaries, the less, you'll be able to be a prey for this kind of predator again in the future, the more aware you are. And look at this like a practice too. Like the more you can depersonalize that abuse, realize it's not about you, it's about that person. They're making it about you so that you get misdirected and focus on self-defense, but it's really about that person. And that person is, using ways of interacting in social situations that are not acceptable. This is not the social agreement. It's not the social agreement that you manipulate people like that. And that person is doing that. And if you can learn to look at that in a depersonalized observer way, you're really going to become keen at recognizing those tactics. And it's almost going to be like humor after a while. Like it won't be so triggering emotionally. And the humor even helps to like release the emotional trigger when you're like, oh my God, that's so perfect. That's just so stereotypical. Wow. What a typical manipulative strategy. Well, that was a rationalization followed by an evasion, followed by a misdirection, and like you'll be able to like rationally call out the plays, like everything this person is doing, and the tactics are going to be so clear. Get this book. Get the book In Sheep's Clothing, because you'll understand the tactics so clearly that when you're in the situation, you're like, right, that's this, and that's that, and that's that. It's so clear. It's like, it just becomes like a textbook, right? And so that will help you too. That will be easier. And hopefully it gets to the point where that person just gives up and goes away and maybe even gets another job. But if it gets to that point, and only you can decide where that is, where is the line for you? And if it ever gets to that point where it's now really setting you back in your career, or you're just wasting too much energy on that, and it's getting to the point where it's becoming masochistic to stay, at that point you might want to consider looking for another job. And I know it really always sucks to have to change your life because some predator, some manipulative person is targeting you. But the reality is that sometimes that happens. Like sometimes they just don't stop. And sometimes it just gets so bad that the only way to deal with it is to go away and to get a different job and start over. So only you can decide where that line is and what's right for you. But meanwhile, look at this like a learning opportunity. She says, yes, 2 months, I'm getting there, but every day is challenging. It really is. It really is. And 2 months, that's great, because those first like 2-3 months, those are the hardest. Like, especially that first 30 days. Wow. Right. I bet looking back now, it probably feels pretty relieving compared to where you were. Difficult to move as I have a career built with the company I don't want to sacrifice. I really hope you don't have to. I really hope that you can stay there and this person will finally find another target and move on. And, or maybe people just suddenly realize who this person is, you know, and they lose their job and they got to go. I would much prefer that be the reality. Someone says here, could it also be that they might be jealous as she says she's higher in the company than them? Surely, which is what makes me extra cautious, because if that subordinate is jealous, you know, of this person's position, of this person being like, what extent are they willing to go through to undermine you? You know, like, it sounds like the people at work are not giving them the time of day. The danger is when they get other people at work in on it and they turn people against you and they feed people lies and bullshit. It's not even true. And then you become a victim of that. And it doesn't sound like that's what's happening right now. You just want to be vigilant that that doesn't happen. Be careful, because these people, I mean, they will go to all lengths. And also, I would urge you to be very cautious in what you share personally with anybody else at that office, because you have to assume that that person is going to try anything and everything they can, you know, to triangulate you. And if they can find out any little vulnerability about you from someone else, if you share in confidence some vulnerability that you have, like, you know, anything with somebody at work, and they get wind of that, they could twist that and manipulate that against you. So be very cautious of that too, and of your sharing in your environment there. Someone says here, 30 days of, she said 30 days of no contact was crippling. I used to use my position to try and open opportunities for them to further their career. I gave them opportunities, but they didn't pursue it. Yeah. Be very cautious that they don't turn that against you. Yeah. I imagine those first 30 days, like you said, was crippling. That was really hard. You made it through that. You're still there. You're doing even better now. That's amazing. You know, how strong are you? How brave are you? Pretty damn strong. Okay. Pretty damn brave that you're even willing to use your position to help them. Just be very cautious that, you know, when extending your help, that could get turned against you. So just be very, very cautious of what's going on in those dynamics, and don't overshare and overtrust anyone else at work that might turn against you, or that might even just accidentally share something and not even mean, you know, to hurt you or to do something that could put you in jeopardy, but somehow that person got wind of it, you know, and utilized it. Someone else said smear campaigns. Yeah. So just be cautious of the smear campaigns, because these people are famous for doing this. You know, narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, they are experts at the smear campaign, and they are experts at looking good while they do it too. I don't know how they do it, but they do. Someone says, idiots love to jump on bandwagons. That's the caution, you know, the whole groupthink thing, right? The sociology, they talk about groupthink, right? Like one person says something loud enough, or one person gets outraged enough about it, like a bully at school, right? The bully does something to hurt someone else, and everybody saw it, right? All the bystanders saw it, and they saw what happened, and they know who the bully is. But then the bully goes, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. So-and-so, such and such. And they know that if they act outraged enough, indignant enough, that they can turn those people to go, okay. And then they defend the abuser. They defend the bully. They get on the bully side because they don't want to be on the bad side of that. And also because, like, once one person gets on and then another person gets on, and now it's contagious, you know, and now other people get on that wavelength. So that's the danger in the smear campaign, the flying monkey thing. It's the group think and how dangerous that group think can be. So that's the only caution there. The help ship has sailed for them now. Others who work around them have been excellent in understanding. Excellent understanding for you. I think that means, right? If that's the case, that's awesome that they're understanding. Sometimes you get really lucky and people see it. Yes. Yeah. You're talking about understanding you. Sometimes you get really lucky and people see it and they realize and they believe you and they stand up for you sometimes. most of the time earlier on in my life, no one saw it, no one heard me. I felt so alone, right? And then, you know, the smear campaign and everybody's ganging up against you. And it's terrifying. It's overwhelming. You start to then think you're the bad guy, right? But it sounds like in your situation, people are understanding. That's really wonderful. Really, really wonderful. And I'm really happy to hear that. That's definitely in your favor. You know, the fact that people are aware, again, just still be cautious with what you share, because recognize that any vulnerability you put out there, you know, could be used against you. You're doing a really good job. I know that's not easy. I'm really, really proud of you. Do you have any other questions on that, or does anyone else have questions too, or anything else to add to that? Someone says here, I learned some powerful lessons over a period of 18 years in marriage. I experienced even more abuse during the divorce process. He passed away November last year. Though we divorced many years ago, he did not stop the abuse. He continued to badmouth me with my daughters, family members, and friends. My world is a better place for him having passed on. Yeah, that's the thing, you know, is after you get out, and I think the statistics are that the majority of domestic murders happen after the victim gets out, because at that point, the abuser has nothing left to lose, you know, and, you know, so you get out of the relationship, whatever. And like, you notice like the divorce process was the worst part, because he already lost you. Like, he lost everything. And so at that point, he had nothing left to lose. He was going to make it as hard as possible for you. So that's the caution that you have to have with these people, is like, getting away seems to be the hardest part. And sometimes it is the hardest part, is to get out and get away. But it doesn't mean it's over yet. You know, first you got to heal yourself and get through all that. But also there's this next level of, you know, how aggressive are they going to be with the smear campaign? How aggressive are they going to be attacking you after you got out? Sometimes they immediately get a new supply and they just leave you alone. Or they know that you know who they are, and they're afraid of your position and telling people that they just leave you alone, and they go and they prey on someone else. In the case of this marriage, you know, he didn't stop the abuse after the separation, you know, well into the divorce. He was doing that. He was bad-mouthing her to her children, you know, to family members. This is one of the saddest things about, you know, when there are children involved, you know, the co-parenting with the narcissist is they will always try to turn the kids against the good parent. They will always do that. And it's so sad for the kids. It's very confusing for the kids. I've seen this happen in my own family with family members, you know, like cousins and whatnot. I see this happening, and it's happening with their kids, and the narcissist turns the kid against the parent. And this parent is like an angel, like a blessing, like one of the most kindest hearts, generous hearts you'll ever meet. So loving, so accepting of people. And oops, Siri thought that was an invitation. You know, and so you would think, well, who would possibly not believe her? How could you believe him and not her? But they are so skilled at that art of twisting and misdirecting and the smear campaigns that you just don't want to underestimate the potential there. She says the abuser had another partner. She had several failed suicide attempts. I believe she saved my life. And that's really sad. That's really sad that, you know, that person got to that point of suicide attempts, you know, and of course that probably distracted him slightly from abusing you. But still very sad for that person, you know, to have been in that. And yeah, it might have been that she saved your life because maybe he didn't go after you so relentlessly because he had the new target, you know. It's unbelievable. I could have been driven to that extent. Yeah. If you had stuck around, you might have gotten to that extent, because how many people think about, you know, that? How many people think there's no way out? How many people think it's over? Like, I don't know. It can't get any better. It's hopeless. And then they commit suicide. And the statistics for married men who commit suicide are significantly higher than the statistics of married women. And I think that that comes back to the fact that women are more able to stand up and say, I'm being abused, and to leave that relationship on the pretext of I'm being abused, I need to get out. So many men having the difficulty, one, admitting that to themselves, that they're being abused at the hands of a woman or another man. And then, you know, dealing with the societal pressure of like shaming him or disbelieving him. Oh, you can't be abused by a woman. Oh, you can't be a man and be abused, you know, that kind of thing. And just the shame and the embarrassment of it, that they don't do anything about it and they stay in it to the point where they commit suicide. That's a tragedy. You know, someone said here, they drive us to that. They want us to self-destruct. Exactly. Because then you do the work for them. You know, the abuser abuses you until the point where you start abusing yourself for them. You know, you become the proxy abuser, or they get someone else to abuse you for them, and they don't have to abuse you. Like a narcissist parent will usually get the golden child to abuse the scapegoat, or they'll get the golden child to sympathize with their abuse against the scapegoat, you know, until the point where the victim starts to blame and abuse themselves. They self-sabotage. You know, if you find yourself in patterns of self-sabotage, look at that in a new perspective. You know, why are you self-sabotaging? Who taught you to sabotage yourself? Where did you get used to someone sabotaging you to the point where you decided, this is what happens when I start to feel successful or I start to have something good in my life, I have to self-destruct it. How dare I have something great in my life? Because you learn through the abuse patterns that you didn't have the right to that. And if you catch yourself in those self-destruction motives, you know, take another look at that, you know, and recognize that, you know, is this what I want? Probably not. Who taught me that? Probably an abusive person, you know, and so don't carry on that work for them. Someone says, yes, I could have as well after the initial discard. Writing down the negatives and bad things snapped me around. Good. Good. Yeah, I recommend that people take a notebook and write down all the abuse, write down all the bad things that happened, and then keep it in the notebook. And of course, you can close it and put it away because you don't want to be totally focused on it all the time. But when you get to that dangerous point of romanticizing and nostalgia and looking back to the good stage when things were good back at the beginning, you know, when you catch yourself going there, to redirect yourself to focus on that notebook, on the abuse, and read it and remind yourself until you get to that point where you get that reality check that you don't want that. It snaps you out of the denial, you know, because the denial is the subconscious thing. The denial kicks in subconsciously as a defense mechanism. When there is something too emotionally painful to deal with, the denial will kick in and you'll slide back in there. And the survival mechanism then is to enable the abuser, to have empathy for the abuser, because then maybe they will spare you. You know, that's the survival strategy there. And that's very, very dangerous. So you have to consciously redirect yourself out of that by looking at the abuse, you know, at the things that happen. Someone says, I think of his cheating, porn, gaslighting, disappearing acts, etc. Good. Yeah, consciously redirecting yourself back to the bad stuff, back to the stuff that were the red flags, back to those horrible things that happen, because you know that abuse amnesia is powerful. It can kick in and it can make you forget the abusive things that happen. And instead your mind goes then, well, but sometimes this person is this and that, right? And that's very, very, very dangerous when you're dealing with an abusive situation. So it's really good that you're giving yourself those reality checks by going back. Someone else says here, as soon as I was on a success streak in my career, he would act out, divert my energies to him, saving the marriage instead of focusing on my career. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, they love that. You know, as soon as you start to get successful or you start to get attention or people are giving you some kind of positive, you know, energy and interaction, they have to act out to bring the attention, the awareness, the energy all back to them, you know. And so if he's acting out, and alcoholics are famous for this, you know, oh, I only have an alcohol problem when things are bad with you and me. And when everything's good with you and me, then you noticed I don't drink and I don't have a problem, meaning the problem is you. And if you don't do what I want and you don't give me what I want, then I'm going to get upset and I'm going to say the problem is the marriage and I'm going to say the problem is you and I'm going to say you're the reason I drink, right? Blaming you for the abuse and blaming you for his addiction problem. So don't get sucked into that. Don't get sucked into that. Don't get sucked into the misdirection. The diversion back to them, the diversion really is the focus on them is actually a self-defense. And that's why it's so tricky, because you think you're trying to make it right to them and you're trying to fix things, but actually you're defending yourself. And that's the trick, is when they get you to focus on the self-defense and not on the abuse. They're getting you to focus on your reaction to the abuse and not the actual abuse that's happening. That's the danger there. So keep looking back to them. That's interesting. I wonder why you would do that. That's interesting. I wonder why you would say that. It's not about you. So always depersonalizing that and looking at it like an offense. I think a lot of us got to that point where we felt like, well, what did I do? Did I trigger his insecurities somehow? Did I trigger her insecurities? Did I make her afraid somehow? Read this book. You'll have a whole new perspective on that. It's there. We think that these are defensive behaviors that they're doing. We think, well, they're just afraid. They're just insecure. Maybe I triggered that. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I brought it on. No, it's not. That's an offensive behavior. They are cognitively, consciously, strategically manipulating to get what they want. They want the win. They want what they want. They're going to squash all of your, all of your denial of that, all of your suggestions that that's not the right thing, all of your oppositions to that, any of your hesitations and qualms and, anything. They will squash that. They will make you to self-doubt and they will force their way. That is offensive. That's not defensive. And the best part, I think, the way that Dr. Simon, makes that clear is the cat analogy. Okay. The difference between when the cat sees a pit bull, a giant ferocious dog, and when the cat sees a mouse. Okay. When the cat sees a pit bull, the cat goes on the defensive. The cat is terrified. The cat is motivated by fear. The cat gets as big as possible. It's going to arch its back. It's going to stick its hair up. It's going to stick its tail up. It's going to go Rawr! And make all the noise and all the outward aggression it can to hopefully scare the dog away and avoid the attack. Now, the cat sees a mouse. Very different scenario. The cat's like this. And it's very quietly, very stealthily approaching that mouse. The cat is on the offensive. The cat wants the mouse's prey. The cat is not motivated by fear. The cat is motivated by desire. These manipulative people are motivated by desire. They are the stealth cat looking for the mouse, looking for the prey. That's what's happening. They're not motivated by an insecurity. And that's where I kept getting lost every time. Until I read what Dr. Simon was saying, now I really, really, really get it. It's not a defensive posture. It's not triggered by fear and insecurity. It is offensive. It is triggered by desire, what they want. And they don't stop until they get what they want. Someone says here, so that person was asking the other person here, how did they drain you? Mine was hours of texting all day, 2 or 3 hour calls at night when I was away from them. One night I didn't text when looking after my sick daughter and I was punished. Yeah, that's really common. If you go and do anything else, if you give your attention and your energy to someone else, they will punish you. Either they're just bombarding, you with texts and phone calls or emails or whatever they're doing, or they wait until you get back and then they punish you, but they absolutely hate for your energy to be on someone else. That person says, drained my energy by orchestrating arguments and being totally irrational and illogical. I would take a step back because I am unable to engage in destructive conversation. You are really good at that. I remember you using this phrase, I didn't want to give them a stick to beat me with. That is excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent advice when dealing with narcissists is to be able to maintain the calm, to not give them anything, to not engage in that destructive conversation, to understand that entering that playing field means you will lose. Their game is to win, to get what they want. They will stop at nothing to get that. They don't care how much and who they have to destroy in the process. They want that, right? And that is the outcome that they're going for. They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop for that. So simply engaging means that you're signing up for that. You are really good at that, really good at not engaging in that destructive conversation, because that is exactly what happened. And they will drain you. They will drain you so much in that self-defense. You know, yeah, these irrational, they call them circular conversations, word salad, this kind of stuff. It will exhaust you and drain you. And then at the very end, it's all pointed to you like, and it's all your fault. And it's not at all. Someone says yes to that person, sleep deprived. They used to hold me on the phone some nights until I fell asleep. Someone else says, why don't they like it when our attention is focused elsewhere? Because it has to be on them. They're narcissists. It's the narcissistic supply. They're the most important thing in the world. You have to be focused on them. That's their whole shtick. They are so self-important. How dare you put your energy, attention, awareness on someone else, right? How dare you not give them everything? And if you do, if you go out with friends or you go want to do other stuff, or maybe you have kids, you know, from a different marriage or something, and you want to give attention to them, they will be very jealous and they will try to sabotage that. They don't like your attention to be anywhere else. They don't even like you to spend it on yourself. You know, like you want to go to the gym or you want to go do something, you know, maybe you want to massage and relax, and they're like bombarding your phone with text messages. Like they know that's your time. And they try to ruin that time. They know that at this time on this day, you do this thing, that is exactly when they're going to call you. It's exactly, 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before, when suddenly something major happens and they're the victim and they need all your attention to help them, and they're distracting you from what you need to do. They love the sleep deprivation. They love exhausting you and upsetting you to the point where you can't sleep, where you have insomnia because all you're thinking about is that conversation. Or like you said, keeping you on the phone until you fall asleep, or you're like, okay, I'm really tired, I want to go to bed now. And then they just keep talking and they just keep talking. And then like hours have gone by and you missed hours of sleep, and then now you're tired in the morning. And then the best part is when they create the fight or something like that, and they're purposely sleep depriving you. And then the next morning they're like, so how'd you sleep? And they'll do it with the straightest face, as if they're so concerned for you, and that is a big red flag. When they exhaust you to the point where you can't sleep at night, and they know that, or worse yet, they're like texting you or waking you up during the night. They want sex and they're waking you up in the middle of the night, or they have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but your alarm doesn't go off until 8. But, since they have to get up, you have to get up. So they're going to be banging stuff around the apartment, making lots of noise, turning on the light, anything they can to disrupt your sleep, but so covertly, like they're never going to like tell you what they're doing. It's just all underhanded. And then, oh, I can't believe you. I have to get ready for work. You have no patience. You have no understanding or empathy for me, that kind of thing. So be cautious with the sleep deprivation, because they love to do that. Why? Because when you're sleep deprived and you're exhausted, your thinking brain doesn't work as well. And when your thinking brain doesn't work as well, it is easier for them to abuse you. Someone says, I think I gave him a good run for his money. I do not buy into the typical behavior patterns. I kept my sanity for much of the time. Also, never gave up on my relationships with girlfriends, my support group. That was a really good job, because a lot of victims end up giving up their exterior relationships with friends and family, either because of the triangulation from the abuser, or just because it just gets to be so uncomfortable, or they don't want their family and friends to recognize what's really happening because they know their family and friends are going to call it out. You did a good job not to give that up, because the abuser always likes to isolate the victim, isolate them from outside perspectives, because as long as they're not getting a reality check from someone else, then they'll be able to stay in the abuse. And someone else says, absolutely. He did that to me also. And he would know I was nodding off. And then first thing in the morning, he would wake me. And it went on during the last 3 years. I was unrecognizable. He wore me down. I was isolated during the end of the relationship. That is what they do. Someone else says, I feel for you. I used to get told I took up too much of the bed. It ended up with me hanging off the side of the bed half, sleeping on the bedside table. I became so paranoid I used to barely sleep when they were in bed. Yeah, it's like they know that these tactics of sleep deprivation, they will create all sorts of dramas to cause you to not be able to sleep, to not be able to sleep well, because then you're just exhausted. And then you just don't have the energy to deal with it. You're more likely to enable the behavior when you're exhausted. You're more likely to just go, okay, and make excuses for it or rationalize it because you just don't have the energy to fight it. Or they pretend they're snoring. That's awesome. I was kicked out of bed one night. How low they go. Yeah, they really do. They just, again, their whole agenda is to win. They won't stop until they win. And if you're in their way, they're going to destroy you because they want what they want. If you give them what they want, they're going to be nice to you. And if you don't, and you set a boundary and you try to have a life of your own, they're going to reject that. You know, if you set a boundary and you say you're not going to put up with the way they're treating you, they're going to attack you. They're going to sleep deprive you. They're going to make you feel guilty, make you feel like it's your fault. Someone says he only sleeps about 5 hours a night. I never knew how he survived on the few hours sleep. He has a high-powered job. Believe it or not, I've seen this pattern too, predominantly with the sociopaths. They can get on with 4 or 5 hours of sleep at night. They also claim often to have insomnia. They just can't sleep. It could be just because of all that they've done, that they're thinking about, or just because of what they're plotting. You know, like they know that in order to maintain the upper hand, they have to do something new. They have to do this and that and the other, and they're plotting and plotting and plotting so they don't sleep. Also, if you think about, you know, in the business world in general, in these high-powered positions, you know, it is admired to be that person who gets on with very little sleep. You know, hey, if you only need 4 or 5 hours of sleep, then, you know, that's another 3-4 hours a night or 3-4 hours a day that you could be working, that other people are sleeping. Well, then you're the better executive because you're the one who's more willing to put in the work, you know, and it's sought out after in those positions. I don't know how they function. I don't function without, you know, 7-8 hours of sleep. I sleep a lot. And when I'm really injured, like in one of these relationships or something, then I really need to sleep a lot. Like that's just how my body, you know, heals itself. And that is a body's reparation way, especially the emotional repair. You know, the REM sleep is really key for the emotional repair. Like that is built in because we need to have that. We need to process the emotional stuff while we sleep so that we can kind of clear the cache. You know, like on your computer, when the cache is full, it's like sucking up all the working memory of your computer, and your computer's working really slow. You got to clear the cache. Right. And that's what sleeping is like. And that's what the REM thing is like, is to clear that emotional charge so you can have a fresh perspective. And if you're not getting that quality sleep, you're not repairing, you're not clearing, your thinking mind is foggy, you're not going to be able to fight well during the day. Let's see. I think I'm caught up over here. Oh, new message. It took, I think, months for me to get my energy back. I was really burned out mentally and physically and emotionally. It's true. I mean, it could take months. It could take a year to get that energy back, especially if you had been investing years in that relationship. I mean, it could take a year or more to get yourself back because you can only catch up so much on sleep, you know, and like getting your energy back and getting your life back and like, you know, everything that you lost, you know, just even just the energy and drive every day that you lost. And like, once you get to that point of inertia, it's very hard to get moving again. Like you need a big push to get momentum forward. And that's why having that sense of purpose is key. Tapping into that why. The passions like give you like fuel, right, and motivation, but the purpose, it gives you that direction, it gives you that focus, it gives you a reason to get out of bed in the morning. You know, in the initial stages, there's no reason to get out of the bed. It's just like life out there is just way worse than life in the bed. You don't even want to get out of bed sometimes. You just don't want to deal with it. That's the hard part. And that's when you got to give yourself that morning routine, something to inspire you, something to pump you up, something that's just for you, taking care of you, something that makes you happy, to make you want to get out of bed, make you look forward to getting out of the bed. And then cultivating that sense of purpose, that sense of why, that sense of contribution, that sense of meaning and significance, something that you're giving other people, that you're giving the world around you, so that you want to get out of bed every day. And then more and more and more every day, you have more and more desire to get out of bed. You know, that alarm goes off and you're like, yay, I get to wake up today because I get to help people, or I get to add this, to my work environment, or I get to offer this service to people. And then you're like happy and excited to get out. And then that even gives you more energy, right? It becomes like a positive feedback loop, which then overrides the negative feedback loops of the past. And so that is the thing, creating the new routines, creating the new self-care routines, creating the new passion, creating the new purpose in your life that will help you move forward. It will help you move out of that, because until you have that huge thing magnetizing you forward, the gravity of the past, that inertia is the gravity of the past. It will hold you there because it's what's familiar. It's the old pattern that's running. So when you create the new patterns, then you're creating new patterns in your life. You're creating those new positive feedback loops. Someone says, be kind to yourself, sleep in when you have the time available, restore your physical energy. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Give yourself that time to recover, because you need it. Like, don't underestimate that recovery time. It really is key. And sleeping is great. Like it feels like sometimes I feel guilty when I want to sleep a lot, because I'm thinking about all the things I'm not doing when I'm sleeping and all the things I could be doing. Productivity, right? Like, because society is so focused on production, consumption. It's like the only state of consciousness that's valued in our world. And so there's like that guilt of not being productive. But if you're sick, if you're recovering from one of these relationships, you have to take care of yourself. You have to create that time to allow yourself to sleep and recover. Someone says, working out really helped my energy start to come back. Indeed. It seems counterproductive, right? Because you go and you work out and you expend energy. But the reality is that the more you work out, the more you exercise, the more energy you have. It's counterintuitive, but it actually does work that way. She says, yes, I've started walking a lot now. Great. Yeah, walking is really, I think it's like the best exercise, because it cultivates new energy. It creates it in the temporal lobes. I learned this in cranial sacral class, the temporal bones on top of the temporal lobes, which process memory, right? And so as you're walking, they're actually moving slightly, like your cranial bones actually move slightly. And so as they're moving, it's literally like resetting your mind. That's why you can feel like, you got your mind on stuff and you go take a walk to clear your head. You literally are clearing your head. Like, it literally does change your head. And it's also good for your body because it's this very gentle movement. Running can be good too, but it can also be really hard on the joints, like the knees, for example. If you have knee problems, it's really bad, for your body. If you have asthma, that can be really difficult. Running can trigger the asthma. Whereas walking is just sort of like this gentle form of movement and exercise. Someone says, right, when I was at my lowest point, I used to walk a lot. Good. It's free. I'm not working at the moment. I try to brisk walk. Yeah. You don't have to have a gym membership. You don't have to pay for classes and trainers and stuff. You can just go outside and walk in the neighborhood. It's also great because it acclimates you to the environment and to the climate. So even when the weather is not so nice, your body is in touch with that, because nowadays in our modern society, we live in homes that are usually heated and sometimes even air conditioned. And so we live in sort of this false environment, and the body doesn't really get acclimated to the extreme heat and humidity outside, or to the cold outside. And the more that your body acclimates to that, the more resistance you build up, and the healthier that is for your immune system as well. Someone says loud music while driving fast also helps me. I love to sing along and dance in the car. That's great. With caution, of course, right? But that's awesome. Loud music can really pump you up. You're in your car, you're not bothering anybody. It's not like you're bothering neighbors, bumping the music at home. You can put up the windows and you're not bothering anybody. You can really rock out and feel amazing. I don't have a car anymore, but when I used to love that. I used to love singing in my car. It doesn't matter how bad I sing. Like, nobody is going to be bothered by that. You can just enjoy that time. Someone says, yeah, singing and dancing all by yourself can be a real mood lift. Absolutely. Yeah, I have dance parties of one quite frequently. My dog watches me and is like, what's going on, Mama? It feels good, right? You let your body move, you just put on some music that pumps you up, whatever music feels good to you. Music is powerful to change your state. That's why, I recommend it in the morning as part of your morning routine, either music or some kind of motivational, inspirational thing like YouTube. You can look at like motivational videos, inspirational videos, great stuff, like Will Smith stuff. I love some of those things, like clips from his movies or clips from his interviews. Like, he's really a great motivational speaker because he has such a hard work drive. For him, it's not about being born with talent. It's about working for it. And that's inspiring. That's inspiring to everybody. It's something everybody can relate to. I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. Awesome. Yeah, whatever song, whatever music pumps you up, whatever speaker pumps you up, get into that, and train yourself to go to that when you need to get something to pump up. Really awesome. Someone says, try YouTube, Adele motivation. The part about being broken to release your creativity really helped. That's awesome. I haven't heard about that. Really awesome. Really awesome. Yeah, find these messages, find these positive things that you set up to go to when you get into that really low state. Like, even if you have to write a list of this, or you create a playlist on YouTube, and it's like, your pump up list. And it's like, that when you're starting to get down, or you're starting to obsess, or you're starting to focus on that, you go to the playlist and just hit play. Even if you don't feel like it, even if you don't feel like dancing and you don't feel like being happy, turn it on, because it will change you. It will change your mood. It will get you out of that, because otherwise it just becomes like a downward spiral. Like, the more you sit and stew in that, the harder and harder it is to get out, right? So relying on some kind of outside thing like music, that vibration, which excites you and gets you going and like makes you get excited. And then like before you know it, suddenly you have a different idea. You want to go do something. You want to go see your friends and feel good in a social interaction. Or, maybe you're self-employed and you're feeling really down, and like you listen to something motivational and now you're like, oh, I got a great idea for this new thing I want to do for work. And then you go and create this new project. So whatever that is for you, but find something motivational, find something that pumps you up, that makes you feel good, and go to that. Make that your go-to for when you need that. This is really great. Really great. Thank you all so much for participating today. So with you, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. We've been about an hour and a half now. You're welcome. I'm going to process this and I will post this later on YouTube, of course. And thank you all so much for participating, for sharing, pieces of your stories, for asking questions, for being vulnerable here. Really, really appreciate you guys being willing to do this, because you're asking the same questions that other people have. You're having similar experiences that other people are having and not knowing how to deal with them. So by you bringing this up, it helps other people who are listening to this later. So thank you all so much. I'll be back here again at 6 o'clock Pacific time in about 4.5 hours. Hope you guys are having a great day, and I am sending you all a big hug.